Good morning, everybody. I'm Neville Agnew with the Getty Conservation Institute. Welcome to the first day of the official lectures in the symposium, which is entitled Cave Temples of Dunhuang, History, Art, and Materiality. Note that the title of the symposium is very similar to that of the exhibition. The exhibition is Cave Temples of Dunhuang, Buddhist Art on China's Silk Road. And I hope those of you who are members of the public will have a chance today to see the exhibition if you have not already done so. It's a welcome to the Getty Center and welcome to this symposium. I hope you find it of interest and enjoyable. We have a very tight schedule in terms of presentations today and tomorrow, which will be at UCLA, and you will see, if you have the program, where the venue is and what the schedule is. May I beg, while I remember, and I always forget to tell audiences, to banish your cell phones, at least temporarily, by turning them off or into airplane mode, so that we don't have interruptions. And that's an important message. My colleague, Marsha Reed, who's co-curator of the exhibition and co-convener here of the symposium, hasn't arrived yet. I dare say she's stuck in traffic somewhere. This is, of course, the inevitable consequence of living in Los Angeles and trying to make an early morning appointment like 9 a.m. Believe me, I live far away and it taxes me to get here. But I was lucky this morning. I was in some state of trepidation as to whether I would make it. But miraculously, who knows? The 405 freeway traffic is unpredictable. So I made it, and I'm pleased to see so many interested public here, and of course colleagues who've come for the symposium from countries far away. Including Professor von Falkenhausen, who made the special trip from his sabbatical, I think it is, in Europe to come back for the symposium. My co-curators, Mimi Gates and Director Fan Jinsu herself, for whom the symposium is in honor, if I've got that grammatically correct. So I would like you just to acknowledge Professor Fan Jinsu, Peter, and perhaps you just stand. She's a colleague of ours of the Getty Conservation Institute through our work at Dunhuang for more than 2.5 decades, going on for 3 now. So we know her very well, and she is the reason why we can have both the exhibition and the symposium here today. She has been a great force in the protection and preservation of the world-famous Mogao grottos. Good morning, Marsha. There you are. I wonder if you'd like to join me at the... Oh. Thank you. Marsha's arrived. Marsha Reed, a co-curator, and I was just making my excuses for you, Marsha, by saying that undoubtedly it was the traffic. So without further ado, I think I've said what I need to say, and really extend a hearty welcome to you, and hope that you enjoy the presentations, some of which are academic, some of which relate to conservation of the site, and looking at the issues that are relevant today to the preservation of the site, which is one of the great sites of art and history and Buddhism in the world. And certainly it's a great site in and of itself, but it has particular significance for China because it's undoubtedly one of the 6 most important sites in China. Because why? Because when China joined the World Heritage Convention of UNESCO, it was one of the first 6 sites that were nominated for World Heritage status, together with the Forbidden City and the Xi'an Terracotta Warriors, the Great Wall and Mount Tai, and so on. So it's right up there in the stratosphere of significance in terms of cultural heritage, history, and particularly the significance of the Silk Road. So I'd like to invite our keynote speaker, Professor Rong Xinjiang from Peking University, to provide the first keynote speaker. Keynote lecture. I might mention that last night's lecture by Professor Victor Meyer was a keynote lecture as well, intended for the public, and undoubtedly many of you were there. It was a sold-out event, and we had a very interesting, informative lecture from Professor Meyer. But today we're starting on the academic symposium as such, and I'd like to invite Rong Xinjiang to join us here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my deep gratitude to Professor Fan Jinshi, Mr. Avenue, and Mrs. Gates for their great events to make this wonderful event happen. I feel very honored to be invited by Getty Center and UCLA to deliver this lecture. In this short speech, I will outline the rich history and the cultural signification of Dunhuang and Mogao grottos, as well as provide my own reflections on some historical moments related to Dunhuang. At the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, when Western explorers arrived in Dunhuang, it was an extremely desolate place. The caves in the lower tier of Mogao grottos were half buried in sand. In 1962, when Fan Jinshi graduated from Peking University and went to the Dunhuang Research Institute, many of caves built into the site of a cave in Mingsha Mountain were completely exposed to the elements. This desolate place in those times was markedly different from what we see today. It's as if they are 2 different worlds. So what was Dunhuang and Mogao grottos really like in ancient time? Dunhuang is located on the western edge of Heshi Corridor and was never particularly large town at any point in Chinese history. However, the town's geographic location meant it has a completely different history to other ordinary towns in ancient China, a history that was rich in Eastern and Western culture and commercial exchange. Visitors to Mogao caves should not miss the opportunity to view Cave 323 on the upper section of the north and south walls of main temple. Of this cave are paintings of 8 stories, which are generally referred to as paintings about legendary events of Buddhist history. From the Han Dynasty story of Zhang Qian is sent to the western regions, to the Sui Dynasty story about monk Tan Yan, are all examples of the monks at Dunhuang using the medium of painting to illustrate the history of Buddhism before the Tang. The motif on the wall looked like the painting on open scroll, and this type image is the only one of its kind at the site. The most notable feature about the first painting of Zhang Qian is sent to the Western region. It's that it described Emperor Han Wudi defeating the Xiongnu and received 2 golden statues. Here. However, the emperor did not know their title and or positions, so he sent Zhang Qian to the Great Kingdom of Bactria. This painting indicates that in the eyes of Buddhist fellows during the Tang Dynasty, the history of Buddhism in China started with Zhang Qian's visit to the Western regions. This is the fascinating story, but a simple out-and-out Buddhist legend. However, this story is closely related to the first time that Dunhuang appeared in historical documents. The true historical facts are as follows. Dunhuang was originally a territory where nomadic people, known as Yuezhi, lived. Historical evidence shows that they were the earliest people trading and transporting cotinese jade stone to the central plains of China. Around the first half of the 2nd century BCE, the Xiongnu from the Mongolian plateau drove the Yuezhi out of the region and became the master of the Heshi corridor, including Dunhuang. Xiongnu also moved south to attack the newly established Han Dynasty. In 138 BCE, Emperor Han Wudi dispatched Zhang Qian as his emissary to the western regions looking for the displaced Yuezhi. The main purpose of this mission was to make alliance with the Yuezhi against the Xiongnu. Thus, Zhang Qian's destination was not Bactria, as the wall painting named. In 131 BCE, after major Han victory against the Xiongnu in the Heshi region, the Han counter established 4 garrison posts, namely Wuwei, Zhangye, Jiuquan, and Dunhuang, with Dunhuang being the most important. Zhang Qian later took another mission to the western regions and opened up contacts between the Han Emperor and the western regions. Dunhuang became an important transport road on the Silk Road as a relay post, Xuanquan Zhi, this one. Near Dunhuang, Han wooden script has been found that regard a large number of Western envoys that passed through this station in Dunhuang on their way to and from the west. In reality, Zhang Qian's mission to the western region has nothing to do with Buddhism, but a great deal to do with the history of Dunhuang. During 1st century AD, with the strong support of the Kushan Emperor, Buddhism quickly spread from the northwest India to other regions. The Chinese book Wei Lie mentions that in the 6th years BCE, a scholar called Jinglu receives transmission of a Buddhist text from an agent of the Yuezhi king. Professor Tang Yongtong of Peking University argues that this is the earliest records of Buddhists reach China. Strangely, there is no written records of Buddhist activities in the Oasis Kingdom in Timor Basin or along the Hershey corridor for the next 1.5 centuries. During the Eastern Han, there were only signs of Buddha image being brought into Chinese art, like this. Therefore, the later Professor Zuiher believes that the Buddhists had passed the Western regions and the Hershey corridor during its spread. A more authentic form of Buddhism did not appear in China until 148 AD, when An Shigao reached Luoyang and established a religion order and translation center. However, in recent decades, archaeological evidence shed great insights on this matter. In 1991, as a post-Xuan Quan Zhi, a wooden script similar an invitation was discussed. It mentions that Dunhuang has a place named the Little Buddha Ward, Xiaofu Li. That is to say that a Buddhist pagoda or temple once existed in this area. According to some other wooden scripts with dates between 51 to 108 AD, discovered from the same site, the script that's mentioned above should be made within the range of the second half of the 1st century, when China was ruled by Han Mingdi. Traditionally regarded has long indicated that the reign of Mingdi witnessed the beginning of the spread of Buddhism in China. Based on such evidence, one can probably argue that with the influence of both Kushan Emperor and Han Dynasty, Buddhism found its place in Dunhuang and gradually permeated into all levels of society. New archaeological discoveries also reveal that around the same time, Oasis Kingdom in the Timor Basin began to accept and spread Buddhism. Against this background, we now have a better understanding of how Buddhism spread in China. Monk Zhu Fahu was one of the greatest translators of Buddhist works into Chinese. He studied his missionary work from Dunhuang and went Chang'an and then Luoyang. Between 184 to 308 AD, he translated 175 sutras. It was due to the events like that of Zhu Fahu that the Chinese people became familiar with teaching of Mahayana. In early 20th century, Japanese exploration team discovered in Turfan a manuscript of Zhu Fo Yao Ji Jing, dated to the 296 AD. This text was just translated 4 years early by Zhu Fahu in Luoyang. It shows that this translation of Mahayana works makes their way west to Turfan from the central China plains. After the decline of the Western Jin during the 4th and the early 5th century, Dunhuang was ruled by 5 successive kingdoms. Due to its relative stability, a large population, including members of the great clans and the commoners, fled from the political chaotic central China and took refuge in Dunhuang. This migration accelerated the growth of agricultural economy and the patronage of the local elite. Buddhism witnessed rapid growth. According to the inscription from a Dunhuang stone stele dated to the 698. A Buddhist monk called Yue Zun traveler from the eastern to the west and arrived at the eastern edge of Mingsha mountain. He suddenly saw a flash of golden light in which a thousand Buddha appeared, like this way. This way. He then decided to carve out the first Buddhist cave on the eastern cleft face of Mingsha mountain at Mogao. Not long later, the monk Fa Liang, also coming from the east, constructed another cave next to Yue Zun's cave. This was the beginning of the creation of near 1,000 years of Buddhist art at Mogao Cave Shrine. Yue Zun and Fa Liang are both monks that come from the east, maybe not too far away from Dunhuang. Although we don't know the exact places they were from, the main area where Buddhist grottos was constructed to the eastern of Dunhuang was close to Liangzhou, the principal town of Hexi. We don't have evidence on Liangzhou that dates back to the second half of 4th century. However, the northern Liang king, Zhu Qu Mengsun, constructed a cave temple at the southern mountain of Wuwei. That is Tiantishan grottos in the early 5th century. Professor Su Bai named the style of the earliest Buddhist cave temple constructed by the Northern Liang royal family the Liangzhou model. He has described the main characteristics of this model as follows: a cave temple with either a main chamber where a large statue of Buddha would normally be found, or a square or rectangular shaped chamber centered around the pagoda. The main Buddhist statue would be either of Shakyamuni Buddha or a cross-legged Bodhisattva Maitreya. The main name of the cave paintings would be the Thousand Buddhas. This type of construction can also be seen in the other early cave temples of the Hexi area. It is almost impossible to discern which of the caves at Mogao were constructed by Yue Zun and Fa Liang, but Dunhuang caves and the small stone Buddhist pagoda. This is early Dunhuang caves and small stone Buddhist pagodas that were survived from Northern Liang period shows the influence of Northern Liang Buddhist sculptures. Another event worth noticing is that in the year 439, the Northern Wei destroyed the Northern Liang. Two brothers of royal families lead their followers from Dunhuang to Turfan. There, they established a new kingdom in 442. Among the refugees were elite members of a great clan and prominent monks from Hexi corridor. In 445, the king Zhu Qi Anzhou commands construction of a royal monastery and erected a stela. German expedition has found this site. Found this site in Gaochang city. The site is rectangular in shape with a main deity being Maitreya, sitting cross-legs in the form of Bodhisattva. This is a classical Liangzhou model. This monastery was undoubtedly constructed by the artisan brought from Dunhuang. it suggests that the Whitehall style in Dunhuang caves should also carry the Liangzhou model. Since the middle 5th century, Dunhuang became quite unstable, but Buddhism continued its development as it has during the period of the Five Liang Kingdom. This was particularly so when Dunhuang was under the direct rule of the Northern Wei dynasty. This brought Buddhist culture from the central plains of China to the Dunhuang area. This is a highly sophisticated Buddhist culture developed by the Northern Wei. It assimilated elements of the Liangzhou style as well as Buddhist culture from metropolitan cities such as Pingcheng and Luoyang. A manuscript of Zha Bi Tan Xin Jing, preserved in the library cave of Dunhuang, was handwritten by Feng Xi, husband of a Northern Wei princess in Luozhou. Buddhist image fragments made from embroidery of Northern Wei Prince of Guangyang were also discovered at Mogao. These artifacts were all brought from Northern Wei capital city Pingcheng before capital city moving to Luoyang. In the final years of Northern Wei, Central China once again suffered from political turmoil. Yuan Rong, Prince of Dongyang of Northern Wei imperial family, served as governor of Dunhuang. This brought a close connection between the Northern Wei capital Luoyang and Dunhuang. Yuan Rong makes significant contributions to the flourishing of Buddhism in Dunhuang by sponsoring major religious activities, commissioning copying of more than 100 scripts. This was one of the copy. And a large cave at Mogao. And the leadership of members of local gentry, cave construction reached a new climax during this period. The notorious persecution of Buddhism launched by the Northern Zhou seems to have very little impact on Dunhuang. Unification and the Sui dynasty once again brought China together. The imperial house of Sui are all devout Buddhists, gave the unprecedented imperial favor of Buddhism. Dunhuang entered a new era of massive construction of Buddhist caves. About 80 caves were constructed at the Mogao site within a period of just over 13 years. They were dedicated by people from different levels of society in Dunhuang. In 601, the Emperor Sui Wendi commanded that each prefecture should construct a stupa, preserve the relics of Buddha. With no exception, a relic stupa was erected at the Congjiao Temple in Mogao. During the violent transition between the Sui and Tang dynasty, amid the civil war, Tang court closed its northwest frontier. People were not permitted to go out to abroad. When monk Xuanzang went to the west in 627 to seek Buddhist scripture, he managed to sneak out by taking a road between Guazhou and Dunhuang and didn't pass the passed through the Dunhuang town and Mogao caves. When he returned to Khotan in 644, however, the Tang Emperor Taizong has already destroyed the Turfan kingdom of Gaochang that has given so much support to Xuanzang's journey. Xuanzang could no longer pay tribute to the king of Gaochang, Qu Wentai, for his support. So he submitted a petition to Emperor Taizong admitting his violation of the Tang court and expressing his willingness to accept the consequences. To Xuanzang's surprise, Taizong, who kept his eyes closed on western regions, quickly ordered local officials to greet Xuanzang and brought him to the capital. It was probably between the fall and the winter of 644. This great Buddhist monk passed through Dunhuang and reached Tang capital Chang'an in the beginning of the coming year. Probably because of rushing his way to Chang'an, Xuanzang stayed only briefly in Dunhuang. There is no record showing him making a visit to the Mogao caves, but it was during his stay in Dunhuang that an important cave was under construction. That is Cave 220. Dedicated by the local Zhai clan. On the south wall of the main temple is a painting of the land of bliss in the west. The north is a painting of the medicine Buddha. The eastern wall is a sutra transformation painting of the Vimalakirti Sutra. What is particularly noteworthy of the painting is the depiction of the image of emperor. The image resembles the figures in the famous paintings of dynastic rulers by Tang culture artist Yan Liben. This is the first such image appear in the wall paintings at Dunhuang. Their style most likely came from Tang capital Chang'an. The construction of the cave coincides with the period that Xuanzang was passed through Dunhuang. The fact that paintings dated to this period make no use of Indian Buddhist motifs shows that Xuanzang's brief stay made little impact on the visual style of Mogao caves paintings. Instead, officials who were independent from Chang'an to greet Xuanzang were more likely to have brought the latest style of visual representations from the capital to this remote town. They were incorporated by talented local artisans into the cave paintings at Cave 220. The great power of Tang Emperor also brought new life to the Silk Road. During Dunhuang once again emerged as a major depot of trade and commerce along the Silk Road. Sogdian merchants, this group, travelers on both way in large numbers, and there were a continual flow of monks and from different religions. A large quantity of goods, silk included, was transported from Chang'an and other major cities in China to Dunhuang. So were Buddhist and Taoist texts. With these new views, painting and sculpture styles of the Mogao caves also shows the latest artistic fashion from Chang'an. There were a rushing among local officials and gentry elite to commission new caves. Sogdian merchants also brought Iranian styles from the West. During the reign of the Empress Wu, the number of caves at Mogao already reached more than 1,000. The year of 755 is a turning point in the history of the Tang. The rebellion of An Lushan forced the Tang to recall its strong army from Tang-controlled Hexi to central China, fighting the rebels. This left the vast regions without military support. The army of the Tibetan Kingdom took this opportunity to seize this region. Many gentry members and prominent monks took refuge at Dunhuang, which became one of the last strongholds of the Tang. After 10 years' resistance, the Tang finally surrendered to the Tibetans. The Tibetan Kingdom agreed to protect the local population and the condition that no migration to other places would take place. This enabled the culture once brought by monks and scholars from Hexi to be preserved in Dunhuang. The period of Tibetan occupation at Dunhuang continued its tradition of Buddhist worship, and the strong support of the Tibetan Kingdom. The Buddhism community in Dunhuang became even more prosperous, and number of monasteries and monks and nuns grew rapidly. Dunhuang was not only have two great Buddhist masters, Dunhuang and Facheng. Here is Dunhuang's worker. Up. There was also an eminent Chan monk called Mo He Yan, who went to Tibet to preach Chan Buddhism. This takes. It is also quite fortunate that because of the Tibetan occupiers, Dunhuang escaped from the massive destruction of Buddhist monuments during the reigns of Tang Wuzong. Artifacts from the religious workshop at Shazhou brought abundant record showing participation of local population in devotional activities such as sutra copying and cave making during this period. In 848, a local magnate called Zhang Yichao led an uprising to draw out of Tibetan forces from Dunhuang. Using Dunhuang as his base, Zhang Yichao established a powerful local regime and declared his allegiance to the Tang. In 851, the Tang court bestowed the title of Guiyi Jun on Zhang Yichao's regime. Such Dunhuang was ruled by the Guiyi army for nearly 200 years. In 914, after collapse of the Tang, the power of Guiyi army was also transferred from Zhang family to Cao Yijin, who is likely to be the Cao clan that were from the Sogdian bloodline. bloodline. He established a good relationship with the Uyghur and the Khotan kingdoms. This prolonged the rule of the Gui army for more than 100 years until it was finally destroyed by the Tangut Xixia kingdom in 1036. The Tibetan patronage of Buddhism had a profound impact on the Gui army religious attitude. The Zhang family's commissions of levels, new caves brought Dunhuang to yet another era of fervent Buddhist worship. Some scholars even called this renaissance of Mogao grottos. When the Cao family took control of the kingdom, they continued this practice. Nowadays, many highly expensive and elaborative caves at the Mogao and Yulin gave testimony to the religion's devotion of the local leaders during this period. This Zhang Yichao's army on the wall painting, and another Gui Jun leader, the following the next Jiedu Shi of Zhang Yichao, and the Cao family's cave, the 61. Caves at the Mogao and Yulin were not only centers of belief for official and ordinary folks from the region. They were centers of worship for ethnic minorities, such as the Uyghurs and Khotanese from neighboring area. Since the ruling family of Gui army maintained marital relationships with Khotanese royal family, a large number of Khotanese-style Buddhist images appeared in the fresco of Mogao and Yilin dated to this period. This also the Cao family's cave, the very famous painting of Wu Taishan. And here is the famous image from Khotan and other places. One telling example is in the devotional paintings of each governor of Gui Jun. One can find the depiction of the famous image of Oxherd Hill and the 8 guiding gods of Khotan. In every large cave of Gui Jun leader, there are the famous image in here and the eight guiding gods over their head, and a famous image of Oxherd Hill from Khotan. It's Khotan mountain. The Gui Jun period was an important epoch in Dunhuang. Despite that the Gui army carried the title of the Tang commentary, it is in fact an independent kingdom. The powerful Gui army enabled Dunhuang to continue its religion practice. Moreover, it brought more cultural traditions together. The kingdom supported missionary activity and plays important role in the Eastern and West communication from 9th to the end of century, to the end of the 10th century. Here also the 8th guide of the Koutian. The library cave, here is traveling monks across Dunhuang. The library caves discovery at the Mogao originally belonged to a local monastery during the Guiyu army's period. It was sealed during the final years of Guiyu army. The factor that this modest scale local monastery was able to assemble such an astonishing number of documents and artifacts like this. Is a full demonstration of the cosmopolitan nature of Dunhuang at that time. With the gradual decline of the Guiyu army and the occupation of the Xixia kingdom, the center of the Xixia moved to the east, and Dunhuang gradually lost its former glory. By the end of the Guiyujun period, the cleft face at Mogao has already become full, and there was no longer any further space for new caves. Benefacts began to decorate existing caves, and there was very little new construction. Although during the second half of the 13th century, Marco Polo makes some cursory remarks on Dunhuang in his travel account. The Mogao caves and even Dunhuang became almost completely forgotten until Qing dynasty established Dunhuang as a seat of the new county administration. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Rong, for that very interesting survey of the history of the Mogao grottos at Dunhuang. It's now my particular pleasure and privilege to introduce Dr. Honoris Causa Fanjinse, a recently retired director of the Dunhuang Academy. Fanjinse has devoted her entire life to the protection, study, and promotion of the Dunhuang caves. She, as you will hear from her talk, went there as a young girl, a new graduate from Peking University, and spent decades working at Dunhuang. She retired last year. She's now Director Emerita. She's a national figure in China, known for her defense of Dunhuang against any encroachments, and she's been very effective in protecting the caves, in ensuring that they are maintained at the highest standard. And she, more than anyone, has built the excellence of the Dunhuang Academy as a premier establishment, a premier institution in China for management and conservation and study of heritage sites. She was recognized at the celebration on the 60th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China as one of the 100 most important women in China who've had the greatest impact on the development of Chinese culture, and she participated in the celebratory parades and was awarded gold medals and the like. So she is an extraordinary force, and it is my great pleasure to introduce what I call my friend and colleague and Director Fan to you, and invite her to give her reminiscences of her life and work at the Mogao Grottos. So please welcome Fan Jinse.
各位女士、各位先生，我呢简单给各位介绍一下莫高窟保护管理工作的探索和实践。
Ladies and gentlemen, today I'd like to give you a short presentation on the conservation and management practice at the Mogao Grottos.
这一张照片介绍是62年敦煌文物研究所，实际上就是敦煌研究院的前身。当时职工住的土坯的房子，越摁越不对。啊，对，你这问题。这个房子啊，原来是来莫高窟烧香的香客拴马的马厩改造的。那么怎么回事呢？上世纪40年代，常书鸿就是敦煌研究院的创始人，还有第2任的院长段文杰，这些前辈刚刚到莫高窟的时候，这儿除了2个小破庙，其他其实就基本上是一无所有。他们只能呢，当时住了庙里头，后来慢慢就是将这个马厩把它改造，才算有了宿舍。那么这个我怎么知道呢？1962年我第一次到莫高窟去实习，他们呢还依然在这些房子我都住过，他们依然在没电、没自来水、没有交通工具、孩子无法上学的这个状态下工作和生活了10几到20年。
So this is what it looked like when I first arrived in Dunhuang in 1962. As you can see, it's a very old building. It was made from mud bricks, and it was originally used as a stable for worshippers who went to the site to put their horses in as a stable for overnight purposes. But in the 1940s, when people like Chang Shu-hong and Duan Wenjie came to Mogao, these were the only buildings that were available on the site to be used as residential quarters. Later on, they were converted and they became our communal residential quarters. I, in fact, lived in these buildings myself. When we first arrived in Mogao, it was a very primitive state. We lived and worked under very difficult conditions where there was no electricity, no water, no regular transportation to the site, and no schools for the children.
这个下面一张照片，照片上呢是我的丈夫彭金章和我的孩子。那么我和彭金章呢是北京大学的同班的同学。1963年大学毕业的时候，我呢到了敦煌，他呢到了武汉大学。毕业以后的第4个年头，我们结婚了。按照常理呢，结婚以后应该我作为妻子应该及早的调到我丈夫身边去工作。可是因为文化大革命就没人管了，所以造成了我们长期的分居，这个时间有19年之久。那么我呢在敦煌待的时间越长，也可以说对敦煌啊越来越有感情越来越深吧。莫高窟呢无与伦比的价值 深深地吸引了我。前辈们为了莫高窟甘于奉献的一种精神，也深深地感动了我。还有呢，敦煌的工作呢需要我，我自己也觉得我应该为敦煌做些工作。所以当时处于一种非常矛盾的状态。那么到了1986年，怎么回事？我们这个分局不能再继续这样下去了。在这个时候，是我的丈夫彭金章先生理解我、支持我，他离开了学校，到了敦煌，由原来的教学叫商周考古，改成搞石窟的考古。这个孩子呢，当然上学，到了甘肃以后也得到了很好的安排。那么就这样，可以说敦煌呢留住了我。那么既然把我留下来了，我就全身心的一直工作到现在。那么我呢，我自认为我尽了自己最大的努力，为莫高窟的有效保护跟管理去做一切。
These are early photographs. One of my husband and myself at the site there, and one of myself and my son, and one of myself. My future husband, his name was Peng Jingzhang. He was in the same class as me at Beijing University, also a student of archaeology. When I graduated in 1963, the authorities sent me to work in Dunhuang. All work was allocated in those days, and you couldn't select your own job yourself. Peng was sent to Wuhan University to teach archaeology. However, we managed to keep in touch, and 4 years after we graduated, we finally married. It was not uncommon for married couples to live in different locations in those times, but generally once married, the wife would be moved to a workplace in the same city as the husband. But the Cultural Revolution laid these plans to rest, and my husband and I lived apart for a long 19 years. However, I discovered that the longer I spent at the site, the more difficult I was finding it to leave. I was captivated by its beauty and moved by the selfless contribution to its conservation by my predecessors. I too felt there was much that needed to be done and wanted to play a role in the conservation of this magnificent place. But by 1986, I decided I could not go on living so far away from my husband and from my family. My husband understood this and was very supportive of my career. He resigned from his lecturer's position at Wuhan University and came to work at Mogao as a practicing archaeologist working in the caves. Arrangements were made to send our 2 sons to school. And that is how Dunhuang kept me, allowing me to enjoy the 2 loves of my life, my family and the Mogao grottos. I've been working there with my heart and soul ever since, doing the very best I can for the conservation and management of the Dunhuang Mogao grottos.
那么我刚刚到敦煌莫高窟，当然是去搞石窟考古的。可是到了上个世纪70年代中把我调到改成怎么呢？主要从事管理。这个搞考古就成了，就放在第2个位了。那么我一直工作到了去年才离开了这个管理岗位，我就等于长时间的做了这个管理工作。所以下头我想分3个阶段，简单说说我对敦煌莫高窟保护管理工作的探索和实践。那么
When I first arrived in Mogao, I worked in the archaeological field. However, in the mid-1970s, I moved over to management, a field that I remained in until about 2015, the rest of my career in Mogao. So my presentation goes on to divide my work as a manager into 3 different phases.
那么第一阶段呢，就是1975年到1984年。1975年我刚刚到管理岗位的时候，我也不懂什么是个管理，反正做点事儿就行了呗，也没什么想法，以为是继续做常荣先生以前做过的那些保护管理。 那时候我只能做到以前辈做榜样，尽自己的力量开展一点工作就是了。
Phase 1 was from 1975 to 1984. In 1975, I was promoted to management, but really didn't have any expertise or understanding in this area. I just did what I thought I needed to do, and I just thought I should continue with the work of the conservation and management in the same way as Dunhuang had done in the past. At that time, the only model I had was what had been done by the previous generations of leadership.
那么第二阶段就是1984年到1997年。那么20世纪的80年代，中国我们都知道，众所周知进入了改革开放的大好时期。那么1984年呢，甘肃省委、省政府做出了一个非常好的一个决定，扩大敦煌文物研究所的建制，改名为敦煌研究院的重要决定。这个就为敦煌研究未来的发展创造良好的条件。这个时候的敦煌研究院呢，是在著名的敦煌学者段文杰先生领导下，这个时期迈入了国际合作、科学保护、研究创新、弘扬传播的新阶段。
Phase 2 was from 1984 to 1997. In the 1980s, China began to re-engage with the world, and in 1984, the Gansu authorities expanded the institute and renamed it the Dunhuang Academy. This upgrading provided us with the necessary conditions for our future work. Under the leadership of the scholar and artist Dunhuang, the Dunhuang Academy entered a new phase of development that saw international collaboration, modern methods of conservation, research and innovation, and dissemination.
那么1986年，国家决定莫高窟要申报世界文化遗产。那申报要写材料，然后让我呢负责写这个莫高窟的申遗材料。我原来不懂管理，那么这次呢给了我一个极好的学习机会，促使我开始对莫高窟的保护管理的学习、钻研、思考和探索。也是我思想上重视的，管理可不是一般的一个事儿，是个很重要的事。那么，作为莫高窟一个管理者，从此我把有效保护管理莫高窟的责任，以及真实、完整、可持续保护的理念，作为我自己心中和敦煌研究院不懈追求的最高目标跟科学理念。然后申遗以后呢，我们又通过联合国教科文组织驻华代表的帮助，开始了跟美国盖蒂基金会、跟盖蒂保护研究所等国际文物保护机构开展保护管理合作。除了盖蒂，还有别的啊。在合作当中呢，使我和我的同事学习和引进了国际文化遗产保护的先进理念、先进技术、先进经验。我呢，应该说，基本上按照国际标准确定的目标和理念，来对莫高窟进行科学的保护管理。
In 1986, the Morgao Grottoes applied for World Heritage status. I was in charge of preparing the nomination and the documentation, which gave me an opportunity to learn more about the conservation and management of the Morgao Grottoes. As a site manager, I felt it was my duty to ensure good conservation and management. The principles of authenticity, integrity, and sustainability, and striving to achieve higher goals and modern approaches based on science was central to the conservation and management of the site as far as I was concerned. Following the World Heritage listing, we began collaborating with international organizations, such as the Getty Conservation Institute, after my introduction by UNESCO's representative in China. This provided my colleagues and me with an opportunity to come in contact with modern theories, science and technology, and gain experience in international heritage conservation and management. Since then, the Academy has drawn up goals and standards based on international benchmarks and has applied modern conservation and management methods to the site.
这张照片是敦煌研究院跟盖蒂保护研究所共同对莫高窟85窟攻关的合作项目的一个团队。那么这里头呢，当然有敦煌研究院的院界负责人，中间站的那位呢是咱们现在盖蒂 保护所的所长提姆韦伦，后面呢有他的团队，像盖蒂先生，不是那个奈维尔先生，还有林伯明、什么马克西林等等各位专家。
And one of the projects that we undertook with the Getty was the conservation of Cave 85. Here you can see a picture of the not only the conservation team working on the cave that came both from the Dunhuang Academy and from the Getty Conservation Institute, but in the center you can see the director of the GCI, Tim Whalen. You can also see myself standing behind Tim. You can see Dr. Neville Agnew, and Dr. Martha Demas is in there as well. And you can also see right on the left-hand side, Dr. Lin Bo-ming.
那么我要说的，我们跟盖蒂的正式合作是从1988或者是1989年开始的，一直到现在。那么这个阶段，这个第二阶段呢，做了一些什么事儿呢？我想，对，这个阶段我想盖蒂所呢开始在莫高窟建立全自动的气象站，那个脚上这个库，这是崖顶上，这是库前装了全自动的气象站，中间这个小的呢是在窟内装的这个叫啥气象的监测，这是门上，因为门口跟窟内是不一样的，不能只是一个数据，所以这个时候你就开始搞洞窟跟环境的监测。另外呢，还有搞崖体，莫高窟崖体有很多的裂缝，如果有预定就会倒的，所以要塌的，所以我们也对崖体裂隙进行监测。还有对莫高窟的上层的宝顶洞窟加固、修复跟研究。还有呢，就开始了对壁画的材质、病害的调查研究，对威胁莫高窟保护的自然环境和人为因素进行调查研究，对威胁莫高窟保存的风沙进行监测、研究跟治理，还开始配备了一些仪器设备，还有为了永久保存敦煌莫高窟的壁画，试验制作了敦煌数字档案。我目的是为了让它永久保存、永续利用。另外呢，敦煌已经开始扩大了编制，刚才说变成研究院了，扩大了编制，增加了部门，汇聚了人才，改善了职工的生活和工作条件。这就是刚才说的孩子没法上学这个情况，在这个时候84年以后就改变了。这个另外呢，我们知道这个人才很重要，所以也引进培养了专业人才和培养了一支，那个时候开放已经好多年了，所以专门为旅游开放培养了一支专职的讲解员队伍。另外呢，制定了洞窟的使用旅游开放的管理制度，那不能谁想怎么样进洞就随便，就把这个毛病给改了。另外呢，设置了窟区的安全防范的技术设备，安装了洞窟窟门和玻璃屏风设施，还拆除了莫高窟窟区。原来因为我们都集中在窟区前工作跟生活，现在把所有的那个近现代的后来加的那些添加物的建筑物，统统有的拆了，有的就移到了现在我们所谓新区去工作跟生活。那么原来的这些地方就拆了，为了是完整的保护窟区的人文和自然环境和景观。我们不是光保一点点本体的壁画彩塑就完了，还必须保护它的环境。
Here you can see the picture of the fully automatic weather station that the Getty installed for us on the top of the cliffs. The Institute was very proud of that at the time because it was the only one in mainland China. The only other one that China had was in the Antarctic at the time. Here we have another example of environmental monitoring outside the caves. This is environmental monitoring inside the caves, and this is an environmental sensor on the door of the caves. And the information collected by these sensors would be sent to the centre on a regular basis. So they're monitoring both the external and the internal environment. And this cooperation, excuse me, started with the Getty 88 and formally in 89. So we were monitoring both the caves and the setting. At the same time, we were also monitoring the cliff face, mainly for cracking and stability of the cliff face. We had another project of monitoring the thin-roofed caves on the highest tier of caves on the cliff face. We also looked into the natural and human threats to the sites, as well as did research on and monitoring the control of sand erosion and wind erosion at the site. We also acquired new conservation and research equipment, and we started undertaking digitalization of the wall paintings. We thought this was an extremely good way of preserving the wall paintings for permanently. We also increased the number of staff and departments at the department. Just now I mentioned that we'd been upgraded from an institute to an academy, and we were encouraging many professionals to come and work at this site. It was also during this period that we managed to solve the problem for children being able to undertake their primary and secondary education in the town. We improved staff living conditions and working conditions, and as we were open now to the public, we were receiving visitors, so we decided to train professional guides, not only in Chinese, but also in foreign languages. We developed a management system for visitation and safety. In other words, you just couldn't go to any friend and say, look, I wanted to go and have a look at this cave, can you open the door and let me in? We had a proper system in place that was strictly monitored. And we also removed the modern structures, staff offices impacting the grottos and the landscapes from the front, in front of the grottos area. We believe that it's not only important to preserve and conserve the actual physical fabric of the caves themselves, but also its immediate setting and the broader environment.
对，这张照片，这个是就说那个风沙，可以说原来这个治理之前啊，稍有风吹，马上就尘土飞扬，这个对人不好，特别对壁画保护也非常不好。所以后来该提我们合作以后，就开始这个综合措施。最左边那个黄的，大家看，这是个尼龙的挡沙的。 防沙栅栏，那么这个右边这个呢，前面一道黑乎乎的，就是呢，也是个防沙栅栏，它有3000多米长。然后那个后面那个绿的林带，用沙生植物来固沙，挡沙固沙。这个栅栏跟林带之间，这个上面呢就拿小石头压沙，哎，那么中间呢这一条。 是在沙的源头，用草方葛1米一个那个麦草棉花杆做的草方葛来固沙，所以用了综合措施。那么这个事情开始于1989年，到现在那么多年，应该说效果还是比较明显的。
One of the biggest problems we faced when we first took over managing the site was the problems in controlling wind and sand erosion. And this is where the Getty stepped in 1989 and provided us with a great amount of assistance. We first started working on a vegetation fence, which then prevented the sand, a lot of the sand flowing over the top of the cliff into the caves. Because this type of climate not only affected people who worked at the site, but it also was not good for the conservation of the wall paintings and the sculptures themselves. Then in the left-hand side, you can see another vegetation face, plus there's an area where we have a large tracks of pebbles put into the sand, which traps the sand and prevents it from coming over the cliff. And in the center slide here, you can see another form of sand control. They're grass square matting that is put down to trap the sand as well. We've been using these methods since 1989 and 1990 when the Getty started work with us, and we found them particularly effective in sand control.
这个下面那张照片是在安装玻璃屏风，这个要说一下，这个时候已经是旅游开放，人越来越多了。然后呢，香港的邵逸夫先生给大陆的第一笔捐款，当时就是指明要用这莫高窟的保护，直接保护。所以我们征求他意见，就是为了防止破坏，所以装了库门，也装了玻璃屏风。那么当然现在来看，这个玻璃屏风这些不是特别好，但应该说这30年来，对于防止人为的破坏，还是起了很好的作用。
The next picture you can see is us installing the protective glass screens in 1985. We had a generous benefactor from Hong Kong, and he specifically instructed us that the money he was donating to the site should be used for the conservation and protection of the wall paintings. So we, from that period, began installing these glass protective screens as well as doors on the caves. You can see that the screens are not particularly sophisticated and not ideal, but they really have played an important role in the last 30 years in protecting some of the wall paintings.
这个我下面说第3阶段，就是1998年到2014年，也就是我退下来的时候。那么这个期间啊，是国家非常重视，加大了对莫高窟的保护力度，大幅度的增加了我们的经费投入和科技手段的投入。国际上呢，也对莫高窟给了更大的关注，扩大了国际的交流，使莫高窟的保护管理呢有了很大的发展。这个阶段，但是与此同时呢，莫高窟的保护任务越来越繁重，面临着经济的发展、旅游的快速发展、游客的越来越多，特别是随着经济社会的发展，这样一路呢，给莫高窟的保护管理带来了很大的挑战和压力。大家看下面这个表，这一头是1984年，那一头是2015年。大家看这个游客一路攀升，这一头84年才10万人，那么到了2015年，大家看114万人，据预计今年可能还要增加。所以这么多的人对莫高窟尽管大，可是每个洞并不大，也很脆弱，确实是极大的挑战跟压力。
Phase 3 of my management career in Dunhuang, 1998 to 2015, when I stepped down as being the formal director of the Institute. During this period, the government provided more resources for the conservation of the site, as well as modern technology. Internationally, there was greater interest in the site, and more international exchanges were undertaken, which were very beneficial to us. This greatly assisted with the development of the conservation management of the site. However, we faced even greater challenges as China's economy and tourism began to develop rapidly. Visitor numbers began to soar. If you have a look at the chart, you could see the visitor statistics in 1984 were only 107,000 people, but by 2015, we exceeded 1 million visitors, and it was 1.1 million visitors. It's predicted that numbers this year will be even higher than in previous years. And you need to remember this causes enormous challenges in the management of visitation. Many of the caves are very small, and also their site itself is also very fragile.
这个阶段啊，我作为敦煌研究院全面负责莫高窟保护管理的一个管理人员。这个面对这些市场经济的发展，面对着旅游的迅速发展，这些新的问题啊，这个也应该说有时候也比较头疼。但是经过反复思考跟探讨吧，跟我们的同志们一起探讨，我自己认为啊。 这个是必须要遵循法律，遵循什么呢？就世界遗产公约，还有我们国家的《中华人民共和国文物保护法》，要用法律的武器才能确保莫高窟的价值。再一个呢，莫高窟的看来是一处遗产地，实际上它的保护工作、研究工作、弘扬管理工作是一个复杂的系统工程，要立足长远跟全盘。 统筹的考虑跟部署，不能头疼一疼脚疼一脚。那么只有制定规划，才能保障莫高窟长远、全面、健康的发展。那么另外呢，我们要进一步加大莫高窟长期保护的进一步的科学性，还有呢对旅游开放管理的力度。当时是这么想的。
It was during this period that I took over the complete management of the Dunhuang Academy, and that's the conservation and management of the site. The emergence of new issues meant that I needed to find new solutions. The Chinese economy was developing at an extremely rapid rate. Tourism was on the rise. So I really need to look and explore new methods and means of dealing with this new situation in China. And I found the solution was in having an appropriate management system in place. I realized the importance of following the World Heritage Convention and the law of the People's Republic of China on the protection of cultural heritage, as well as using legal instruments to ensure the conservation of Mogau's outstanding universal values. The conservation, research, dissemination, and management of the Mogao grottos is a complicated undertaking requiring long-term and holistic approaches. The only way to ensure the long-term healthy development of the site was to write a master plan. Further modern approaches also needed to be considered for the site's conservation and the management of visitation, particularly in the long term.
这个下面这个呢，是讲一讲就是依法管理，就是制定《甘肃敦煌莫高窟保护条例》，是敦煌研究院建议跟起草，在省人民政府的支持下面呢，最后甘肃省人大常委会批准颁布了《甘肃敦煌莫高窟保护条例》。这个条例是1993年公布的，但当时呢，我觉得应该是说采纳了世界遗产保护管理的理念。这个条例里头明确了莫高窟的保护对象范围，这个非常重要。你要不明确，这个事情就麻烦了。还有呢，明确规定了文物保护管理机构就敦煌研究院的职责，保护工作应该遵循的方针跟原则，你不能想干什么就干什么。再一个，明确规定了政府机关、社会团体、公民在保护莫高窟方面的权利义务跟应该遵循的行为准则，跟责任。所以这个也规定啊非常好。这个专项法规制定颁布以后啊，为莫高窟的保护管理提供了应该说强有力的法律支撑和法律保障。
The ordinances for the protection of the Dunhuang Mogao Grotto's Gansu province was promulgated in the early 1990s by the Gansu authorities. They used World Heritage standards for conservation and management and clearly stated what was to be protected and the perimeters of protection. That was extremely important. They They also stated the responsibilities of the Site Conservation and Management Organization, the aims and the principles of conservation. In other words, you just couldn't go and do what you wanted to do. It was clearly stipulated in the law what was needed to be done. The law also stipulated the rights and responsibilities of government, NGOs, and the public in the conservation of the site, along with a code of behaviour. The ordinances provided a strong legal support and guarantees for the conservation and management of the site.
下面一项重要工作就是制定敦煌莫高窟保护总体规划，这是一个中期规划，2006年到2005年的。那么这个规划呢，是敦煌研究院联合了盖蒂保护研究所、澳大利亚遗产委员会、中国建筑研究院几个单位3国4方吧合作编写的这个规划。那么规划呢，根据世界遗产公约、中国的文物保护法和中国文物古迹保护准则行规啊，遵循了真实、完整、可持续的保护理念，对莫高窟文物本体以及环境要素的价值做了全面评估。不是说你想怎么做，它首先是评估，然后呢，这是价值评估，下面就对莫高窟本体及环境的保护、保存状况、利用的情况、管理跟研究的分门别类做了科学的评估。然后在评估的基础上，就制定总体规划的目标、原则和实施细则。然后呢，按照保护、研究、利用、管理4个方面，制定4个分项的规划的目标、对策，编制主要措施以及分期实施的计划，最后提出规划实施支撑体系。也可以说，我们现在所有经营工作就是在规划指导下，所以这规划为莫高窟保护管理啊提供了具有专业性、权威性跟指导性的依据，规范提高了莫高窟保护管理工作的管理水平。
Second, I'd like to talk about the Morgao Grottoes Conservation and Management Master Plan. This was a long-term plan that we wrote. The Academy, the Getty Conservation Institute, the Australian Heritage Commission, the Historic Architecture Research Institute of the Chinese Architecture Academy collaborated in the writing of this master plan. The project was supposed to be a model project that other sites would be able to look at and also copy when they wrote their, use the methodology when they wrote their own master plan. The master plan was guided by principles in the World Heritage Convention, China's Cultural Heritage Law, and the China Principles, and those of authenticity, integrity, and sustainability. It included a complete assessment of the values of the site and its setting. And I do emphasize the word here, assessment. You just couldn't go out and do what you thought was right. You needed to carry out a thorough assessment. It also included a systematic assessment of the conservation, preservation, use, management, and research into the site's physical fabric and its settings. Goals, strategies, and implementation measures for 4 subplans. They were conservation, research, use, and management. A support mechanism for its implementation. The master plan provides professional and authoritative guidance for the conservation and management of the site and standardizes conservation and management practice at the site.
那么下面一章，那个敦煌石窟的保护，一个是它本体，就洞窟壁画彩塑，还有就是它周围的环境。那个如果要说起来做过的保护工作呢，当然很多很多。那么我从管理角度呢，就是把它分成2个体系，一个建立了抢救性的保护技术方法的一个体系，另外一个呢是预防性保护一个科学体系。所以我标题就是说，建立抢救性保护、预防性保护并重的科学保护技术体系。那么跟盖蒂保护研究所合作以后呢，我们特别是通过刚才看到的85窟滨海壁画的一个典型洞窟，修了坏，坏了又修复，修复又坏，所以就拿这个洞窟典型洞窟做了一个攻关的做了一个项目。经过多年的双方的共同努力，建立了不是光说修，应该说建立了壁画保护修复的程序和步骤，这个非常重要。这在国际上的 公约操作指南，还有我们国家的法跟那个行规里头啊都有明确规定。你程序步骤倒反掉了，那事情就做坏了。所以特别强调程序步骤。还有呢，研究筛选跟运用保护修复材料，用什么材料去修啊？那修复的技术工艺又怎么样啊？这都有一套规矩。那么以及修好以后呢，有日常保护管理长效机制，那就建立了抢救性保护的科学技术体系。可以说，我们年年修了好多年了，那到这会儿，那么建立了抢救性保护的科学技术体系。那么你不能光跟在后头有了并修啊，是不是应该采取更主动积极的措施呢？那就预防性保护。那么我们呢，在风险管理理论的指导下的预防性保护的科学技术体系，应该说，目前要我的认识就也初步建立了。为什么呢？上世纪80年代后期就跟盖蒂合作，开始以后，前面的照片我们可以看到，已经开始搞这个环境监测的记录。从这个环境记录开始呢，逐渐向风沙活动、洞窟微环境、洞窟的崖体、洞窟壁画和彩塑、游客参观的监测记录延伸，逐渐向全面监测延伸。长期积累的这些本体跟环境的监测数据呢，为我们及时发现问题和辨别本体壁画、彩塑跟它环境的变化是非常好的。然后呢，可以及早实施应对保护，给出依据，为进一步开展莫高窟本体跟它环境的预防性保护的研究呢，提供科学依据。所以这个未来我们继续肯定要搞抢救性保护，但是预防性保护我们会把它越做越好。
As pointed out, we believe that not only should one conserve the fabric of the site itself, but the setting and its environment also needs to be protected. And in terms of conservation systems, we have two different types of systems. One system is used for what we refer to as rescue conservation, and the other type is referred to as preventative conservation. And the title of this particular slide actually combines both systems into one, and that is the creation of a conservation systems for both rescue and preventative conservation. As mentioned before, and you saw in the picture, we worked together with the Getty Conservation Institute in the Cave 85 project. This was an important project. It established procedures and steps for the conservation of wall paintings. This was a particularly unusual cave because it had been conserved in the past. Problems then were found. It was conserved yet again, and then deterioration was found once again. So we thought that this was a particularly good cave to select with the Gettys to work on. So we did research and selected and used conservation materials, technology and techniques, and established a long-term conservation and management system. We created a system based on good scientific practice for rescue conservation. And of course, day-to-day or routine maintenance is also very important after conservation. But we thought that, yes, it's good to deal with immediate problems that are occurring at the time, but that is somewhat reactive in its approach to conservation, and we needed a more positive, proactive approach in conservation, whereby we could deal with issues just as they were occurring or before they occurred. So we used risk management theories to devise a system for preventative conservation. Since the later half of the 1980s, when we began a collaboration with the Getty Conservation Institute, we have kept monitoring data collected in the grotto zone. Monitoring expanded to include wind and sand effects, microclimate inside the caves, the cliff face, the wall paintings and sculptures, and visitors. And we used this long-term data to assess changes in the wall paintings and sculptures, as well as in their immediate environment and setting. This provided us with baseline data for taking measures at the earliest possible time to deal with their conservation. We felt this was quite a good method.
那么下面那张幻灯，这个实际上就是简单说，不同病害的修复技术。那个时候我们已经有了不同病害的修复技术，那它表现了这个过程，然后呢也有工艺也不一样，上面是起甲，下面是空固壁画。那我在这个呢，就是依托敦煌研究院2009年成立的国家古代壁画跟土遗址工程技术研究中心。怎么回事呢？敦煌研究院保护了那么几十年，这个随着它技术提高，不仅自己提高了保护科学水平，而且被省里边跟国家局科技的主管部门命名为壁画保护基地。还依托研究院刚才说了，成立了这么一个中心。这成立中心以后呢，就是给了我们一个使命：你不仅保护自己的石窟，还要为全国的壁画土遗址保护。所以我们呢，通过合作的办法，为不少省区的壁画跟土遗址保护提供指导和技术支撑。
Previous slide we just gave a demonstration of the different types of deterioration found in Cave 85 and the different techniques for solving it. The previous slide was the new National Centre for Conservation of Ancient Wall Paintings and Earthen Sites. Both under the instruction of the provincial and national governments, this new centre undertakes projects throughout China, both on wall paintings and also earthen architectural sites.
下面讲讲这个旅游开放，这是很多人非常关心的。我们原来呢，旅游开放就是管旅游开放，到了这个阶段，我们就跟它洞窟保护结合起来，洞窟保护的管理结合起来，采取了一些旅游开放的新的举措。一个就是在这个洞子里头啊，安装这个传感器。怎么又不对？对，洞窟里呢放这个传感器，就是这个右边这个，进行常年的对开放洞窟微环境的变化。那这个见什么呢？这个人如果不进去，它是稳定的一个环境；人进去以后，人是要呼吸的，对不对？人的流动，所以对它的环境肯定要造成变化。那么它跟壁画的病害有什么关系呢？我们又开始进行这个既监测也研究，为我们进一步的保护这个洞管理提依据。还有呢，跟该体所合作完成什么呢？游客承载量的研究。那么这个照片里头的那边就是对游客这个行为的一个监测，就是左侧上面。下面就是搞了个监控中心，对所有开放洞窟里头的环境人的流量，跟讲解员的讲解时间，所有的都可以监控。为什么呢？也是为保护管理提供依据。
The next slide talks about the innovative tourism management. New measures were put in place for visitation that integrate the management of visitors with the site's conservation. Sensors installed in caves to monitor the environment inside the caves and see if there is any impact on the site. We also undertook a visitor capacity study for the site with the GCI, and there was also a picture of the monitoring centre that you could see there, where all the information from the sensors was sent to.
那么这一张呢，就是我们个游客承载量。经过了也很长时间的调查，现在呢有了个结果，就刚才大家看的那些数据。那么下面这几个呢，一个是中间呢是项目的报告，这个最左侧这个呢是最终的一个项目报告，这个呢就是个研究的一个成果啊。右边这个就是游客承载量，我们应该说完成了，也为我们现在的开放管理提供了科学依据。
So here's the documentation relating to the visitor carrying capacity study that we did with the Getty. We now have a good scientific basis on which to determine what is the carrying capacity for the site.
那么准确的游客承载量呢，是我后来给国家提了个建议，说原来我们就进洞参观，现在这洞如此的迅速的发展的游客数量，那个不能光这么看，再看下去，洞窟要看坏了。咱们简单一点说，游客呢也看不好。那么怎么办呢？我们就给国家建议，就把单一的参观洞，能不能跟看敦煌影视节目、电影结合起来的一种新的展示方式。那么就国家呢对这个建议呢很重视，给我们建了一个莫高窟数字展示中心。那么里头有放这个宽银幕的数字电影，也放3D 的球幕电影。那么让观众呢从影视里头体验敦煌艺术之美，然后再到莫高窟实地去看看那个真佛。这种展示方法既能保护文物，减轻洞窟压力，也得到观众的，也让观众有更好的体验。另外呢，我们配合这个这些刚才说的旅游管理啊，关键有了很多游客管理措施，比如定制度啊，这个洞窟开放的标准啊，什么预约制度、管理制度、洞窟监测啊，还有旺季怎么疏导游客的什么邮件，还有问卷调查，用问卷调查来不断改进工作，提高管理质量。
With the rise in the number of visitors to the site, we decided to experiment with a new method of visitation at the site. Simply did not rely on just sending the visitors to the caves, but we built a new visitor centre where visitors could view 2 films prior to going to the caves. We thought that would reduce the pressure on the caves. At the same time, we've also introduced other measures such as a booking system for visitors, different routes during peak periods, and working together with the tourism authorities to try and spread the load of visitors throughout the day during peak periods.
那么这张照片就是数字展示中心，在外面呢，跟周围环境很协调，戈壁沙漠非常协调。
This is a picture of the new visitor centre. You can see it's quite unique in its style, and it blends in with the sand dunes in the background quite well.
然后里面呢很现代化，那主要就是这电影院。
And the equipment inside, that is the 2 new theatres, are really quite modern. The technology is extremely advanced.
这就是宽银幕的数字电影，就是讲敦煌历史文化背景。
So this is the background film on Dunhuang, which is a widescreen, high-resolution film.
名字叫《千年莫高》。
It's called 1,000 Years at Mogao.
那么这个呢，就是用3D 的球幕电影放映7个洞窟，我们叫梦幻佛宫。这是一个洞，隋代洞。
So this is the domed theatre, which is the super high-resolution theatre, and we show or present 7 caves in that film.
那么观众来了以后，就首先到这数字展中心看这2点，看完再到莫高窟。
So this allows the visitors to be oriented and have some understanding of the site before they actually go and visit the caves.
那么最后我想再说说人才培养，因为我们这远离大城市，在甘肃省的最西端，所以这个敦煌呢莫高窟非常需要人才，所以我们呢很重视这件事，培养不同层次人才，是莫高窟持久发展的根本保障。
Finally, I'd like to talk to you about training. We're quite in quite a backward area and quite far from the major tertiary institutions in China. So it was very important for us to look into training staff we had as well as new staff.
我们的充分借助国际国内交往多的有利条件，就是选送中青年专业人员到国内外高等院校进修学习，这是一个办法。还有呢，用跟国外同行一起工作机会，就培养他就能很快在实验中提高。再一个，鼓励年轻人去读学位，读博士、硕士，得到深造。再一个，我们到现在为止，已经 应该说初步建立了一支理工、人文学科、艺术多学科的专业人才队伍，为敦煌文化遗产保护传承事业提供了人才资源。当然，这只能说，这个今后的人才培养还任重道远。
We train professionals at different levels to ensure that we have the skills we need for sustaining development at the site. We provide opportunities for young and mid-level professionals to study at tertiary institutions in China and abroad through our network of domestic and international contacts. We create intern opportunities with our domestic and international partners to improve DA staff skills. We also encourage professionals to undertake higher studies. So we're gradually putting into place a team that has specialist knowledge in the sciences, humanities, and the arts to ensure the conservation and management of this cultural site for the future.
这个对我而言啊，这个保护管理莫高窟啊，是一个管理者的使命跟他应尽的职责。我能为莫高窟保护管理做一些工作，我觉得是我的荣幸。但不是我一个人的力量能承担的，也不是说我有什么特长，因为正好碰到我们国家改革开放的大好时机，我们很幸运。另外呢，莫高窟呢又得到了国家的高度关注、支持，我自己呢得到了前辈们的培养指教，国内外许多保护机构呢、专家学者的大力合作帮助，还有我们本院广大职工的共同努力，才使我能为莫高窟保护管理呢去做了一些工作，也就是这样。那么今天呢，在这儿我要向所有帮助、关注和支持过敦煌研究院保护管理，还有也帮助过我的国内外科研机构以及各位专家学者，表示我衷心的感谢。
I have approached the conservation and management of the Morgul grottos with the utmost care and responsibility. I have been blessed to be involved in preserving the site. However, I could not have done it alone, as my capabilities and knowledge are limited. The national reform policies introduced during the late 1970s led China opening up to the outside world and the development of the Chinese economy. With increased resources, the national authorities were able to provide the site with increased funding. I myself was mentored by the Academy's former leaders. Many Chinese and international conservation institutes, professionals and academics have worked with us as well. Thanks to the joint efforts of all the staff at the Academy, we have made great progress. I would like to use this opportunity to sincerely thank the Chinese and international research institutes, professionals and scholars who have assisted, supported and shown an interest in the conservation and management work at the Dunhuang Academy.
那么我这儿呢，特别要感谢近30年来长期支持莫高窟保护管理的盖替基金会、盖替保护研究所以及盖替的各位专家学者。最后，我期盼敦煌研究院和盖替保护研究所继续携手合作，为全人类的敦煌莫高窟的科学保护管理呢做出新贡献。由于我呢英文不会英文，所以可能给大家浪费了很多时间，对不起。
In particular, I would like to thank the Getty Trust, the Getty Conservation Institute, and all the staff at the Getty for their support and assistance over the last 30 years. Finally, I look forward to the Dunhuang Academy and the Getty Conservation Institute continuing to work together in making further contributions to the conservation and management of the Morgul grottos, a site that belongs to all humanity. And I apologize for not being able to speak English, so my speech has probably gone over time.
好，谢谢。
Thank you.
Thank you, Fanjin, for your very thorough exposition of your career at Dunhuang from the earliest days up until the present time. I'd now like to call upon a colleague, Guolong Lai, who's professor of Chinese art history and archaeology at the University of Florida, Guolong is an old colleague of ours. He had an internship here working at the GCI with my colleague Martha Demas and myself quite a long time ago. He's a PhD from UCLA under Lothar von Falkenhausen. So Guolong, would you please come forward?
Thank you, Neville and Masha, for the invitation. And for me, it's a homecoming. It's 15 years ago, I was a first group of graduate interns at the Getty Foundation and in the Getty Conservation Institute. So in this presentation, I want to explore the significant roles that Dunhuang played in the history of heritage conservation in modern China. By the role of Dunhuang, I meant some important thing happened in Dunhuang that had a great impact on the development of heritage conservation in modern China. As we know, heritage conservation as a cultural movement and a state policy started as part of a modernization effort in the late Qing dynasty. In fact, the very concept of national heritage emerged with modernity, and the modernity compelled changes in how cultural heritage was conceived and conserved. And in the pre-modern era, Dunhuang as a site of religious worship had played a significant role in the East and Western cultural exchanges. In the modern era, as a site of historical and artistic significance, Dunhuang had played an important part in the history of heritage conservation in modern China. So in particular, I will talk about the 4 roles of Dunhuang in the different stages of heritage development. The first role that Dunhuang played was sadly as a victim of cultural imperialism, but it helped to create a new awareness among Chinese scholars, the government, and the public as to the necessity for heritage protection. As a result, in 1909, in the heydays of late Qing reform, the newly established Ministry of Internal Affairs issued the measures for the preservation of ancient sites, 保存古迹推广办法章程. This is the earliest official document that Chinese government issued on the protection of cultural heritage. The second role that Dunhuang played was as a site that marked the end of imperialist archaeology in modern China, particularly in the events of Landon Warner's second archaeological expedition in 1925 and Orville Stein's fourth Harvard expedition in 1930. It promotes the creation of law on the preservation of ancient objects, the 古物保存法, by the nationalist government in 1930, which set up the basic legal framework for the protection of archaeological heritage in modern China. The third role Dunhuang played is as Chinese scholar Xiang Da and Xia Nai's archaeological excavations in the early 1940s, and the creation of National Research Institute of Dunhuang Art in 1944, directed by Chang Shuhong, marked the rise of professionalism and the institutionalization of heritage conservation in modern China. The fourth role of Dunhuang is the international cooperation between Dunhuang Academy and the GCI, the Getty Conservation Institute, since 1980s, is one of the successful examples of cultural internationalism in heritage conservation in China as well as in the world. So let me look at Dunhuang's side. Since all the speakers will talk about Dunhuang in these 2 days, so mine will be very brief. So located in the crucial junction of the north and south branches of the historical Silk Roads, Dunhuang was a major commercial and religious center in history. After the Islamic conquest of Central Asia and the Silk Roads quickly declined, after European overseas exploration in the 15th century, the Silk Roads were officially abandoned, and Dunhuang Buddhist cave were largely forgotten by the outside world, partly because of favorable dry climate, and partly because of people's neglect, and partly because of the efforts of local religious groups. Some of the Dunhuang caves and its associated artworks has been accidentally preserved. Dunhuang only came back to people's attention after the discovery of the library cave in 1900. The great game between the Russian Empire and the British Empire in Central Asia and China's west regions provide Euro-American and Japanese adventurers the opportunity and enable them to gain financial support to explore these regions, and consequently brought about a competition for archaeological treasures. The exploitation of the library cave by Aurel Stein and Paul Pelliot, and especially Paul Pelliot's small exhibition of his game in Beijing on September 4th, 1909, shocked the Chinese scholars and the general public, and awakened the Chinese government to take measures to protect its national heritage. So before arriving at Beijing, Pelliot visited Dunhuang in Nanjing in June 1909. Dunhuang introduced Pelliot to other Chinese scholars in Beijing. The news that Pelliot brought outraged the Chinese scholarly circle in Beijing, and immediately Luo Zhenyu, the foremost Chinese scholar and himself also a connoisseur and a collector of Chinese art, reported to the Ministry of Education and urged the ministry to purchase and protect the manuscript in the library cave. At the same time, on September 20th, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Minzhenbu, a newly established government branch in the reform era, they sent a memorial to the emperor, and that's the measures for the preservation of ancient site. And after the imperial endorsement, it was published on October 22nd, 1909. As a result of, as the earliest government regulation on heritage preservation, this is the Qing government's effort to safeguard its cultural property in the name of the nation. In the preface, it's clearly stated that these measures was drawn in reaction to and try to stop foreigners from buying art treasure from China. There's three aspects of this regulation that are worth noting. First, this 1909 regulation had a strong connection with the traditional Chinese practice of art collecting and gazetteer writing. But at the same time, it went beyond the old categories of sites and monuments that often listed in local and national gazetteers, and set up the framework for protection non-religious, secular, and public monuments and art collections. Secondly, the 1909 regulation appealed to international law and international agreements for the protection of cultural heritage during wartime, a new undertaking that was being carried out in Europe at that time. The Qing government was quite aware of the recent development in international law and international agreement. The international agreements on protection of an enemy's cultural property in time of war appeared in the Hague Conventions of 1899 and 1907, the early development of cultural internationalism. The Qing government had participated in both conventions and ratified them. This also shows that the Chinese heritage movement was also closely following the international conservation movement in the very beginning. Thirdly, a very important concept that this 1909 regulation mentioned is the protection of original condition. It states the The exquisite mural paintings and sculpture should be protected. No damage is accepted. No repainting is allowed on the blurred images so that the original appearance, the 本来面目, would not be lost. Otherwise, we would see nothing of the ancient art. This is quite a significant departure from the traditional ways of preserving, especially religious image, which is often repaint or rebuild or refurbish these paintings and sculptures, as we see in many of the Dunhuang caves. It is clear that 1909 regulation marked a new beginning in the state protection of cultural heritage in modern China. Certainly, the Qing dynasty was toppled 2 years later. Attempt at heritage conservation was evident, but they were feeble and had only marginal impact on the physical protection of cultural heritage. In the same time, Western imperialistic expeditions continued. Here is a table of the Euro-American and Japanese explorations in the northwestern China between 1850 and 1940. From this tabulation, it is clear that the heyday of the imperialist archaeology in northwest of China was from 1861 to 1920, and it stopped in 1930. Two events, both happened in Dunhuang, mark the end of imperialist archaeology in modern China. The one is Landon Warner's second archaeological expedition in 1925, and the second is Oral Stein's fourth Harvard expedition in 1930. Landon Warner is American historian and Harvard professor of East Asian art, was sent to Western China. He arrived at Dunhuang in January 1924. Armed with special chemical solution, he detached 12 mural paintings from 4 caves in Dunhuang. The method he used was primitive and barbarous. He first applied a strong glue to the wall painting on the wall, and then he placed a cloth against it. The cloth was ripped from the wall, and then he applied plaster on the back of the cloth to transfer the image to the plaster surface. It is said that Warner reached an agreement with local people to purchase the frescoes and remove them in order to save them for posterity. The removal process resulted in some damage to the painting itself and the site. It is ironic that while those wall paintings he was unable to remove are still on display in Dunhuang caves now. Only few of the fragments he removed are in good enough condition to be exhibited now at Harvard Art Museum. It's often said that Warner's removal of Dunhuang wall painting is controversial. But for many, including myself, it seems there's nothing controversial about it. Warner's stated goal was to save them for the posterity. He created all sorts of excuses to justify his action. But 90 years later, the fact is clear, and the fact speaks for itself. According to Wikipedia, certain members of the Warner family will request Harvard Art Museum to return the fragments to Dunhuang. But the museum said they had a bill of sale indicating that Warner legitimately purchased the artwork from the local people. They have no obligation to return them. I'm very interested to investigate what kind of invoice they have. And Warner wanted more. He made second trips to Dunhuang next year. However, what really happened in Dunhuang this time has been subject of several books and articles. For Warner, it is a failed expedition. He spent lots of money, but he didn't get what he wanted when he came back from China. Warner publishes his account next year, in 1926, accusing the accompanying Chinese scholar Chen Wanli and the angry local anti-foreign mobs for sabotage. The same year, Chen Wanli published his account and saying he didn't do anything. The Chinese scholar William Hong Ye revealed to his biographer many years later that he had been responsible for the expedition's tribulation at Dunhuang. He reported to the Chinese government to stop Warner removal of Chinese antiquities. However, more recently, in a series of articles on this and other related topics, American scholar Justin Jacobs revised the previous view, and he says that Landon Warner could not set foot in Dunhuang, and the rest of the expedition not spend more than 3 days at the southern Buddha caves is nothing at all to do with Chinese, nothing to do at all with Chen Wanli, William Hong, Chinese nationalism, the Ming 30th incident, the Western imperialism writ large. It has nothing to do with the rise of Chinese consciousness towards protection of its country's heritage, country's culture, patrimony. It had only to do with the fact that Warner, through his own acknowledged actions, had effectively instigated a peasants' rebellion against local Chinese authority. Here, his acknowledged actions refer to Warner's removal of Dunhuang wall painting and sculptures in the previous year. I think here probably Jacobson was not right. There's a graffiti. There was graffiti on the northern wall of the entrance to Cave 365, and the inscription said, "I'm a man from Jingyuan inside the gate." Last year, I followed Officer Lu came to Dunhuang. Today, I brought Lieutenant Wang and soldiers to station here to prevent the American technicians from stealing wall painting from the caves, dated June 12th, 1925, and inscribed by disciple Zhu Mingyou. That's the inscription. So obviously, not only the local peasants, but also the Chinese government, and they send policemen to station there to prevent Warner from stealing wall paintings. As the two Chinese scholars, Liu Shiping and Meng Xianshi, point out, although on this side, although the inner support of those local people is their religious beliefs rather than idea of heritage protection, isn't it the basic rights of humans to safeguard their religious belief? In fact, the glories of Mogao caves were similarly created and accumulated by generations of such believers. Dunhuang was still an active site of worship for local people for many, many years. And we often think that Dunhuang as a historical site, a dead site, only of historic significance. But as these two inscriptions in the middle, two photos in the middle shows, for many local people, including the Tibetan family on the top and other local Chinese and also minority group in the Dunhuang area, Dunhuang is still a sacred site for them. This aspect of Dunhuang has not been fully recognized, and it is important in order to answer Mr. James Cuno's the Chinese question. He has one chapter in his book, Who Owned the Antiquities? Maybe these people, they are not the owner of Dunhuang, but certainly they are the stakeholders, and probably the ownership is a wrong question to ask to start with. So Warner seemed to be resigned to the defeat at Dunhuang. Only a few years later, he encouraged the old Orlstein to take another expedition to Dunhuang. Again, William Hong tried to persuade Stein to abandon the expedition. But the confident Stein, William Hong recalled, arrogantly lectured him, "Mr. Hong, you are young. you don't know, I have been in China long before and many times. The Chinese officials, they do not care. I know how to manage them. But this time, it proved that Stein was wrong. His old tricks no longer worked. While Stein was busy preparing his expedition, on May 24th, 1930, the nationalist government passed a new law, the Law on the Preservation of Ancient Objects, 古物保存法, which clearly articulate the state ownership of all archaeological artifacts belong to the nation, and established a registration system for archaeological excavations. The 1930 law set up the basic legal framework for the protection of archaeological heritage in China. Under this new law, which was issued in June 2nd and took effect on June 15th, all Stein's intended activity in China become illegal. Stein's fourth expedition completely failed. That's the law. So the third role that Dunhuang played in the history of heritage conservation in modern China marked the rise of professionalism and institutionalization of heritage conservation in modern China. Chinese scholar Xiang Da and Xia Nai's archaeological excavations in early 1940s, and Chang Shuhong's National Research Institute of Dunhuang Art in 1944 are two famous examples in this regard. Xiang Da publicly criticized and exposed the famous painter Zhang Daqian's destruction of Dunhuang wall painting. Zhang was obsessively interested in early paintings. In order to reach the earlier layers of the paintings, he often destroyed the art layers. And in 1944, the nationalist government established the National Research Institute of Dunhuang Art, directed by Chang Shuhong. And this institution is the first institution was created by the Chinese government to take care of a heritage site. And after 1949, there's a couple changes of the name, but eventually become Dunhuang Academy, as Director Fan had just talked about. And in 1963, Fan Jingshi went to Dunhuang and stayed there for 50 years. And I want to emphasize, she represents generations of conservation professionals who dedicated their lives to the conservation of Chinese heritage site. She is the most important, famous one, but she represents a generation of these professionals. Last but not least, since the early 80s, the international cooperation between Dunhuang Academy and the GCI, such as the training of a new generation of conservation professionals at Dunhuang, and the creation and the implementation of the principles for the conservation of heritage site in China, is the most successful example of international cooperation and heritage practice in China. The GCI have many international projects. If you go to the GCI building, each building represents one continent, and they have pictures of their work in many parts of the world. And I think, that's only my opinion, their cooperation with Dunhuang is one of the most successful example of their work. And it's truly, I emphasize, truly truly cultural internationalism. Because internationalism started very early, and cultural internationalism often used as a cover for cultural imperialism. So, but now the age, the time changed. So we have the example of Getty Conservation Institute doing truly, really cultural internationalism in modern world. Thank you very much for your attention.